Every day, moments are recorded. A TV broadcast, a movie, a photograph, or even something physical like a book. Most of the time, these recordings are meant to entertain us, inform us, or preserve a moment in time. But every once in a while, something gets captured that was never meant to be. Something disturbing, something tragic. And when that happens, some people want the media preserved as evidence, while others would rather make sure it disappears forever. Today, we're getting into some unsettling lost media. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And let's begin. Jose Luis Calva. Every mom wants the best for her daughter. They want her to be healthy, follow her dreams, and find success in whatever that is. And most of all, they want her to be happy, especially with whoever they end up with. I'm sure some parents have hopes of their children finding rich, successful doctors or lawyers to marry, someone that makes a lot of money and drives a fancy car. But what any good parent really wants is for their child to be well taken care of, respected, safe. When Soledad Garabito Fernandez met her daughter's new boyfriend, she wasn't sure any of those hopes would come true. Her daughter, Alejandra Galena, brought over said boyfriend, Jose Luis Calva, one Sunday afternoon to meet her family. Everyone was excited to meet him. Alejandra was a single mother who worked long hours at a pharmacy, the only one supporting her family. If anyone deserved happiness and to be treated well, it was her. But immediately, Alejandra's mom wasn't so sure Jose was going to be the right person for that job. There was nothing glaringly wrong with him. To the average eye, he seemed like a normal guy, charming even. Jose went around introducing himself as a poet, singer, and director. He was an artist, and a successful one too. When meeting his girlfriend's mother, he told her that he made $200 a day just by selling his writing. He assured the family there was no better match for their beloved Alejandra, but her mom could see right through that. The first giveaway was his clothes. Jose is from Mexico, where that income would put him in the top 5% of the upper class, a tax bracket that affords him some disposable income. With that much money, he could live a little, and the clothes he wore to Sunday lunch were not giving that. Soledad, the mother, hasn't given exact details on what he was wearing, but she could not make herself believe that a man who made that much money would dress so poorly. Honestly, she didn't want to accept this as who her daughter brought home. It wasn't just the clothes, it was him. He was snotty, pretentious, so incredibly self-centered. Everything was about his writing, his money, him. He's one of those people that just talks at you instead of with you. But Soledad tried to see the good in him, to accept this was who Alejandra fell in love with, pushed down her gut feeling that this man was not who he said he was. And so, who is Jose Luis Calva? Luis was born on June 20th, 1969 in Mexico City. What may have been a happy childhood to start quickly fell apart when he was 2 years old. His dad passed away unexpectedly, leaving Jose with his mom and 4 siblings. Life became chaotic, his mother barely able to take care of everyone, and when she was around, she wasn't very maternal, to put it lightly. No, instead she would punish Jose for the smallest things, and I mean brutally punish him for even just talking out of turn. He would get beat again and again and again. Things didn't end up getting any better as he got older. Like any young kid under the age of 10, Jose wanted to hang around his older siblings and their friends, have that freedom they had. But this ended up placing him around the wrong crowd, because one of these friends decided to use that opportunity to abuse and mistreat Jose, in ways that no 7-year-old should ever be treated. This was his childhood: dark, traumatizing, and unfair. Pretty quickly, he developed pretty severe depression, and on top of that, he drank a lot, like a lot, amongst using other substances very heavily. Even still, he grew up and managed to start a family. He fell in love, got married, and had beautiful children. The normal life that had seemed impossible to him growing up was suddenly right in front of him. But before he knew it, he got the rug pulled out from under him. His wife abruptly left with the kids and moved to the United States. The reasons for this are unclear, but what is clear is that Jose was devastated. I mean, absolutely heartbroken, crushed. The depression he had been in earlier was nothing compared to what happened after his family left. His life became drinking, drugs, anything to escape the pain he was in. Jose watched others around him turn into healthy, functioning members of society, but that felt so far out of his reach. His life became a spiral of mental illness and addiction, and the more time that went on and the sicker he got, the less anyone really knew him. Like, really knew him. All relationships, interactions, or even just passing glances, it was all a performance. Jose was desperate for validation, to be accepted, even praised by anyone around him. So he made himself out to be this great, successful writer and artist, someone that was changing the world, a genius. He was charismatic, charming everyone he met. That scared, depressed, and sick person inside never saw the light of day. His life was all an act. But Soledad wasn't entertained, and she wasn't buying it. And then her daughter went missing in October of 2007. And straight away, her maternal instinct kicked in. She knew something was wrong, and Jose was involved. She knew that their relationship was struggling. Alejandra had just taken a new job that would require her to move, and this was unacceptable to Jose. It was things like that, where his sweet, loving facade of a personality faded away. In reality, he was actually very controlling and demanding. For good reason, this felt dangerous to Alejandra's mother, and when her job called and said her daughter hadn't shown up for work, her mind jumped straight to something bad. Quote, "I figured that maybe he had tied her up somewhere under the influence of some drug in order to stop her from going out." She told law enforcement Alejandra was missing and that they should search Jose's apartment, but nothing could have prepared her for what they found. When they searched Calva's house in the early hours of October 8th, they found him at his dinner table, calmly eating a meal, as if everything was normal. Nothing out of the ordinary. But what they found in his closet was something so far from ordinary. It was something so horrifying, disgusting, and horrific that it made these police officers sick. It was Alejandra. Sadly, though, not alive. And not just that, but not even all there. This sick monster had dismembered her body. Her right forearm and left leg were missing. Immediately, as soon as they placed Jose under arrest, the rest of the apartment needed to be searched, from head to toe. Law enforcement had a gut feeling there was more to this than just what was in the closet. And oh boy, they were right. They found the missing limbs in the refrigerator and a cornflakes box. Their stomachs sank. Now this wasn't a normal murder investigation. This was a clearly very disturbed person. Every detail of what he did needed to be examined. They started with the first thing they noticed him doing when they walked in: eating. The meal that he was having at his dinner table appeared to be fried meat of some kind. Whatever this was also cooking on the stove at the time. The first thing that seemed off about this was the fact that this was first thing in the morning, like before most people were even awake, let alone eating breakfast. And instead of something normal like eggs or bacon, Jose was pan-frying steak. What looked to be steak, at least. That's what the cops wanted to believe. They wanted to let this be a crazy guy who murdered his girlfriend and also ate a T-bone before 6 a.m. But all the signs were there. Whether it made them sick or not, it was clear. And upon further investigation of his meal, there was no denying it. Jose was eating the dismembered body parts of Alejandra. He tried denying it. He claimed that the murder was accidental, that they had been fighting and he lost control, physically assaulted her, and choked her too hard, which is still murder, so I'm unsure what he was really trying to get at there. Then he said that he was just cooking the body parts in order to feed stray dogs around the area to discard the evidence. But when the coroner examined everything, he explained that Jose didn't just put everything on a pan and call it a day. No, he sliced away the fat and the skin, deboned it, and seasoned it with lemon. I don't know who he thought he was fooling, trying to get everyone to believe it was for dogs. I mean, it's already clear what sick, twisted, and gross things Jose was doing that morning, but if anyone needed more proof, the cops found more than just what was on the plate. Now, like I said, Jose was a fraud, like when he met Alejandra's family. He put on a front that he was a lovable, sweet, upstanding person, which, as we've learned, is bullshit. But the one thing he wasn't lying about, or completely lying about, was his writing. It's doubtful he made much money off of it, but he did write. In fact, law enforcement found an unfinished novel. The cover resembled a picture of Hannibal Lecter, except he edited it so it was his face instead. And the title? Cannibal Instincts. Now, Alejandra's mother will never doubt her instincts again. Jose isn't just a self-obsessed con man. He is truly a psychopath. Of course, Soledad must feel distraught and heartbroken that she didn't act on those feelings before it was too late. But she couldn't have really known. No one wants to believe that someone could be so capable of such horrendous things, that there are monsters actually lurking around us. Cannibal Instincts could be a look into that monster's mind. The book is described as having a storyline similar to Silence of the Lambs, but with a Mexican angle, but that's all we know. Relatives of Calva aren't so sure that his death was an S-word. It seems sketchy to them that it happened in his holding cell, where he was supposed to be under 24-hour observation. How he got a belt in order to do it is still unclear. Some family members say that he was being targeted by other inmates who wanted money from him, which I guess isn't too crazy. There's plenty of violence in jails. But it's weird that law enforcement would stage it as an S-word if it was just that. Why not just say it like it is? Lots of people get murdered by other inmates. Covering that up makes it suspicious. And his family isn't the only one to think this. The lawyer that represented Jose says, quote, "He didn't seem to have S-word tendencies. The book was sort of what gave him a reason to live." There's not really much evidence to support these theories, but it does make me wonder if Cannibal Instincts had any hints towards what may have really happened the day of his death. Because Alejandra wasn't the only victim of Jose. He was believed to have murdered another ex-girlfriend named Veronica Martinez, and possibly also a intimate worker whose dismembered body was found near his house. But in these cases, he wasn't the only one involved. Law enforcement also arrested a friend of Jose named Juan Carlos Monroy Perez. They had reason to believe he was an accomplice to Jose in the murder of Veronica, as he was the one who introduced the two in 2004. The thing is, there's not many details on why law enforcement believed this or what evidence they had to back it up. I was also unable to find out if Juan was actually convicted. All I know is he denied having any part in the killing of anyone, let alone eating them. But it points to there being other people involved in what Jose was doing. People that may have been involved in his death and may have even been written about in his books. But we'll never know. The novel is unfinished and either destroyed or kept top secret. Over the Edge. Montreal, Canada, November 9th, 1997. Molson Center Arena. A roaring crowd of 21,000 people in the middle, an empty ring. Anticipation is electric through the crowd. Everyone waiting for the start of the WWF Survivor Series show. The main event was an action-packed match between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. At the time, these two had been feuding for the last 5 years, and the crowd could barely wait to see what was going to unfold tonight. Finally, music blasts through the speakers as the first opponent begins his ring entrance. Shawn Michaels is smug as he walks up to the ring. The Bret Hart fans around him throw their drinks at him, but he's unfazed. Nothing can bother him. You can smell the confidence on him. He's not worried about this match. Behind him is Bret, carrying the Canadian flag over his shoulder. He makes his way up through the crowd. He takes a few seconds here and there to high-five the wild fans desperately trying to grab at him. But he is completely focused, concentrated, locked in to beat Shawn Michaels. This fight feels extra important to him because it's one of his last with the WWF, which he had been contracted with for 14 years. But because of the company's declining financial situation, he had decided to sign with the WCW, another wrestling promotional organization. The head of the WWF, Vince McMahon, didn't want Bret to make this change while still holding the championship title that he earned in 1992. This was actually fine with Bret. He was loyal to this company for over a decade and wanted to end on good terms. He assured Vince that he would lose the title and join WCW with a clean slate, under one condition: he would not lose it to Shawn Michaels. Bret hated Shawn. Their feud was pretty much legendary. They genuinely had it out for each other. Shawn accused Bret of having an affair. They had backstage fights and have both said some nasty things about the other. The stories go on and on. So Bret agreed that he would give up his title, just not tonight. It would have to be at a later match. But Vince wasn't satisfied with this. He had to make sure Bret did not leave the WWF with that belt around his waist. And no matter how many promises Bret made, he just couldn't trust him. So he took the script they had written, the plan they worked tirelessly on, and ripped it apart. He went to Shawn and the referees behind Bret's back and made a new plan, one that would assure Bret lost this match. This would come to be known as the Montreal Screwjob. And Bret felt, well, screwed. More than screwed. He felt betrayed, stabbed in the back. His life's work disrespected. He lost his mind directly in the eye. He started smashing everything in sight, then grabbing the microphone to tell everyone at WWF, plus the entire audience, how unfair this was. Everybody screws me, and nobody does a goddamn thing about it. Nobody in the building cares. Nobody in the dressing room cares. So much goddamn injustice around here. I've had it up to here. Everybody knows it. I know it. Everybody knows it. I should be the World Wrestling Federation champion. Everybody just keeps turning a blind eye. It's like he spit on Vince because that was how he felt. stepped on, and used. There was no calming him down. He was on fire. But that didn't mean some tried to put it out. Enter his brother, Owen Hart. Owen, the youngest of 12 children and 8 years younger than Brent, was backstage watching the chaos unfold. Just like Brett, he was shocked. No one in Brett's inner circle had any idea this was going to happen. He wanted to make sure his brother didn't feel embarrassed, that he didn't beat himself up. You don't look bad for this. They do. You were all class. The Hart family was huge, and while there was definitely conflict amongst some members, Brett and Owen stood by each other. Their father, Stu Hart, who began wrestling in 1943, created a wrestling dynasty with his children. He trained many of them in his basement, otherwise known as the Hart Dungeon. Brett started professionally wrestling in 1976, and Owen followed in his footsteps 10 years later in 1986. At this time, Brett was a big name, like a huge wrestling megastar. Owen wasn't quite there yet. He entered the industry under the stage name Blue Blazer, a superhero gimmick in the ring. He quickly became well known, making a successful career for himself. But it wasn't until he and Brett started working together that he really launched into fame. In 1993, the brothers began a feud, most of which was a written storyline. But like a lot of wrestling, it did bleed into reality a little. It all started with a match where Owen was eliminated after crashing into Brett, which resulted in an argument between the two. This is when fans started to see how Owen really felt. Underappreciated, unrecognized, like he was just Brett's shadow. While these feelings were real, an opportunity came out of it, because most of pro wrestling is really a way of fans to watch a drama unfold, to see characters develop, fights break out, all while putting each other in a chokehold. And there's nothing more dramatic than two brothers having it out for each other in the ring. Brett was unsure of the feud idea at first. He wasn't sure he wanted to fight his brother, but liked the idea that it would give Owen an opportunity for more success. But he wanted it done a certain way. Quote, "I'm in charge and I'll protect both of us. You just need to stick with me no matter what. I'll take care of everything. The other thing is, we don't ride together. We don't travel together. We don't room together. From now on, once this thing happens, we are at war, and there's nothing worse than after a match, us flying home together. It makes it all seem like a big show." And so that's what they did. And Brett's hopes for his brother came to life. His younger brother started to take off in the same way he did, and that continued even after the feud ended. For the next 4 years, he worked tirelessly. He traveled constantly, 10 days away from home at a time. He brought back the Blue Blazer a couple of times over his career and became more well known as the Rocket. He was an energetic, high-flying wrestler, explosive in the ring. By the turn of the century, he was on his way to becoming one of the most legendary wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling. But for Owen, it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. He had something bigger at home, something more important, a wife and 2 children. And really, all he actually wanted was to be home with them. Despite all the success, all the hard work he put in day and night, and the fact that this was essentially a family business, he never really wanted it. Quote, "I was living my dad's dream, being an amateur wrestler and going for the Olympics. But I hated it. When I would come home, I'd want to please my dad, but I should have said, I don't want this." But he never did say that. Instead, he put blood, sweat, and tears into this career for over a decade. That didn't mean he was willing to sacrifice everything, though. He was pressured to do a lot of storylines and matches that he downright refused to do. The WWF wanted him to do one where it looked as if he was having an affair, which was a hard no from Owen. Though sometimes he would turn things down just because he hated the character. But this was his job, and at some point, he had to accept he couldn't control everything if he wanted to continue working. So in 1999, when they asked him to do a stunt at an event called Over the Edge, he felt he couldn't refuse. He had said no so many times. He could only argue against them so much. Over the Edge was a pay-per-view event scheduled for May 23rd, 1999, at the Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri. It was gonna be a thrilling show of 8 matches, each one a culmination of a feud between 2 wrestlers. Basically, it was gonna be an all-out brawl. The main event was a match between Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker. But before that could take place, the Blue Blazer was to make an appearance. For his entrance, the WWF wanted Owen to dramatically come down into the ring on a harness and grapple line, dressed in his bright blue superhero costume. The idea was to make him look like an action figure coming down to save the day. Except the Blue Blazer wasn't quite like Batman. He was a parody of a superhero, clumsy and incompetent. The plan was for him to stop right before he got to the ground. He would then get tangled up and end up falling face flat in the ring, getting a laugh from the crowd. In order to do this, they had to use a quick release clip that would be attached to his harness, something that would allow him to fall quickly, because he had actually performed a similar stunt just a year prior, but the equipment used for that didn't allow for such a smooth fall. This time, the WWF wanted things to be different. Owen's wife, Martha Hart, describes the clip well, quote, "It's a clip meant for the sole use of sailboats. It's designed to release on load. When you click it, it opens immediately. 6 pounds of pressure to release it. That's it. This is what was holding him. This little thing right here." The clip she's holding is tiny. It's barely as big as her palm. And keep in mind, Owen is a 200-pound man, and what's holding him up is a small clip that's designed for sailboats, not a human being. What could go wrong? Well, this wasn't really a question asked by the WWF. The only concern they had was if it would look good, what kind of reaction it would get from the crowd, how good of a show they could put on. And Owen trusted them. He was given the impression this would be a very similar stunt to the one he did before, so there was no reason to worry. It was just another thing he had to do and get over with. And then he could get back to his family. So he suited up in his Blue Blazer costume, put in his mask on, and got into the harness. He got into place, looking down below at the ring, and waited for his cue. He heard the music begin. The backstage crew gave him a nod, 1 step forward, and he was off. The lights were dimmed in the arena, and he was so high up, the crowd could barely see him. But he heard their screams, and felt their eagerness for the match to begin. And very quickly, that excitement turned to horror. Before he even made it a couple of feet down, Owen slightly adjusted himself and his Kate to get more comfortable. But this clip, which let me repeat, is made for sailboats, took that movement and had it trigger its release function. But Owen was nowhere near the ground. He was actually 78 feet in the air. Picture 7 stories, tall enough that if you were to be on the 7th floor of a building, you'd probably have a great view of the city. Owen didn't have time to observe the view. He only had 2 seconds. 2 seconds to yell, "Look out," before he crashed chest first on the top rope of the ring and then onto the ground. The arena was silent. Suddenly, all of the energy was sucked out of the room. People couldn't believe what they just saw. Some thought it was part of a performance even, but others knew it in their gut. That wasn't meant to happen, but it did. And while audience members hoped for the best as they watched paramedics take Owen away, his fate was already sealed. He had severed his aorta, and it took him not even 10 minutes for him to bleed out internally. Owen was pronounced dead that night at just 34 years old. No one knew what to do or what to say. Jim Ross, a play-by-play commentator, was put on the spot and forced to be the one to break the news. Quote, "Here in Kansas City, tragedy befell the World Wrestling Federation and all of us. Owen Hart was set to make an entrance from the ceiling, and he fell from the ceiling. I have the unfortunate responsibility to let everyone know that Owen Hart has died. Owen Hart has tragically died from an accident here tonight." You can hear in his voice how in shock he is, how much this hurts him to say. Now, instead of anticipation, grief runs through the crowd. But that didn't really matter to the WWF. Vince McMahon decided the show must go on. Yes, you heard me right. The show must go on. Like a man didn't just die in front of 21,000 people. Not just that, but brutally and horrifically and unnecessarily, because let's be so for real, why was a clip designed for a sailboat holding up a person? A microscopic, dollhouse-looking clip. And also, it was able to just go off at any time, so if he just hit himself like he did, he would fall. It had no safety precautions. There was no excuse for this to happen. It could have been prevented 1,000 different ways. If anyone in the organization used a single brain cell or cared enough to think about it. I'm not the only one livid about this. His wife, Martha, was not letting anyone get away with this. Nope, not one chance in hell. And how could you blame her? The WWF, a company that Owen had been loyal to for more than a decade, put him 80 feet in the air with nothing but basically a fish hook to hold him up, and then continued the show in the same ring they pulled his lifeless body off of. They didn't even allow time for the cops to come. What should have been a crime scene for an immediate investigation instead was the stage for the following matches. It doesn't even seem like they had enough time to fully clean the blood off the mat. So Martha sued them. She demanded $18 million from the company because of negligence. And she got it, which is incredibly deserving and relieving that she received justice. But that doesn't bring her husband back. And there's still questions in the air. How did this happen and why? The story in the beginning was the Montreal Screwjob comes back to mind, not just for me, but for Bret Hart. Bret was distraught. His baby brother, who he wanted so badly to get the recognition he deserves, was gone forever. But with that heartbreak, there was also anxiety. Everyone who watched the Montreal Screwjob knows that Bret and Vince did not have a good relationship. They kind of hated each other. And Bret did not make Vince look good after Montreal. He was trying to make sense of what happened to Owen. Quote, "It really was very hard for me to take at the time because I kept thinking that maybe they murdered him to get back at me. That may seem crazy and paranoid, but it's also pretty insane to assume the WWF weren't aware of how much danger they were putting Owen into. They had asked a professional rigger to set up the stunt, and they refused. The WWF wanted the fall in such a quick, specific way. This guy knew there was no way he'd be able to do it safely, because even if that clip is able to hold 200 pounds or more, it clearly has no safety mechanism to protect someone who's 78 feet in the air. All he did was make a slight movement, and it opened within half a second. Whoever this professional rigger was must have thought they were crazy to even suggest it. But instead of, I don't know, listening to that guy and looking for a better approach for this stupid stunt, they just found someone else that would do it. And this person, Bobby Talbert, is who chose the clip for the stunt. He decided on something from Lumar, a company that had multiple prior incidents of their products resulting in death. So, they must have had the perfect thing to put the hands of Owen's life into, right? I mean, clearly, there was no real thought or time that went into making this decision. A decision to put a man 80 feet above the ground, all for a show. Because one can argue whether it's really WWF's or Lumar's fault. But the fact is that Owen's death could have easily been avoided if they just didn't do it. If they didn't half-heartedly go to the lengths to include a stunt that was unnecessarily risky. And when something is so easily avoidable, it's natural to make someone wonder if there was more to it. If the negligence was on purpose, if there was a motive behind it, that's how Brett was thinking. Could his anger towards Vince have caused him to retaliate? He had made Vince the bad guy. Could he have wanted revenge? Well, he was assured that wasn't the case. Quote, "A policeman from Kansas City's police department called me and he goes, 'I promised I'd call you and I'm calling to tell you that there's nothing criminal here. This was just a horrible accident.' And for me, when I heard that, it was like, okay, it's an accident. Basically, I think in my heart of hearts, I forgave Vince. I had plenty of reasons to have issues with Vince, but they were on a professional level and not a personal level." Brett tried to move on, find peace with the situation. Martha was not in the same place. For her, there were no excuses. It was either on purpose or the WWF, a billion-dollar company, let a man die because they didn't care enough to protect him. She was not letting that go. On top of suing them, she made sure they could not continue to use his name or footage in any way. She even prohibited them from inducting him into the WWE Hall of Fame, which was something her brother-in-law, Brett, did not agree with. He felt Owen wanted to be remembered for his wrestling career, and what Martha was doing was a disservice to his legacy. But honestly, it seemed like Owen wanted to be remembered for more than wrestling. Quote, "When my contract is up, I'm out of wrestling. I've made plans. I've been smart with my fiscal affairs. Financially, I'll be set. I really want to devote a lot of time to my family. I've bought some property on a lake. I plan on doing a lot of boating and fishing. I want to continue to stay in shape. And who knows, I might do 10 weeks to a year in Japan. Something just to motivate me to keep in shape, keep involved a little bit, but not have to deal with the politics, pressures that are so intense right now. This business is very addictive. I've seen many people say I'm quitting or I'm getting out of it and just can't. I've paid my dues for 12 years now. If I continue for 5 more, that's 17 years working at a pretty hard clip. I think that at that point, my family, my wife and kids, have been compromised enough. I need to start focusing on my family and letting go of wrestling." This was from an interview he did 5 minutes before his death. It's devastating. Owen was so close and so excited to having a normal life. He worked so hard so he could achieve that one thing: time with his family. That was all he wanted. And just when he was so close, the carelessness of the WWF let him down in an unforgivable way. Thank God Martha won the settlement and got the justice she deserves. But it's beyond frustrating to not know who was really behind this. Was there one person at fault, or was everyone to blame? The one thing that may give us an answer would be the footage, to actually see his fall. But of course, it's gone. Locked away and kept top secret. It's in the WWE's vaults with the words, "Do not view, duplicate, or record over," written over and over again. It's never seen the light of day. Maybe there was some minor detail that could point to who's at fault here, or a reaction afterwards that would give us a clue to this puzzle, or just respect to the death of Owen. We'll never really know. But there's no question about it. This is a devastating tragedy. And the world lost a great life that night. And alright guys, that wraps up some unsettling lost media. I hope you found today's video interesting, but both of these cases were beyond sad and disturbing and yeah, truly harrowing. But I hope you found the video interesting nonetheless. Comment down below your thoughts. I read every single comment, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching. It means the world. This is the best community on YouTube, hands down. You guys are the best. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please check out some other videos on the channel. I'm sure you'll enjoy some other videos. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. It means the world. And this is Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.